Hello, Pawn Stars, and welcome to the Rathole. I'm your host, Commissioner Zach Eichten. In NFL news this week, 9 NFL teams suspended practices in light of the continued police brutality problem that's been recently highlighted in both Kenosha, Wisconsin, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. 3 of those teams that suspended practices were NFC North teams, the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions. Several sports leagues around the country had teams strike or suspend practices in order to speak out against this continued racial injustice. Allow me just to editorialize for a second here and say that I'm really happy that the NFL has had such a quick turnaround on racial injustice issues and protests involving players over the recent years since Colin Kaepernick started and was then blacklisted by the league. It's great that players are feeling finally empowered that they are able to do this and teams are following suit. And I wish the players the best of luck as they help move the issue of racial justice forward in this country. For too long, people of color have been denied justice through systemic injustice and discrimination based on the color of their skin in the criminal system, as well as across the board in the healthcare system, the education system, and really anywhere ever that's involved white people in holding positions of power and refusing to hold themselves and others accountable for their actions to ensure fairness. Not only on the individual level, but also we need to start demanding structure changes in order to ensure that people of color have the same American dreams as you and I. Like I said, I wish the players the best of luck in moving these solutions forward. And I call on all of us to really take a critical lens to the actions that we do on a day-to-day basis and make sure they are consistently anti-racist. Let's move over to Vikings news really quick. The Vikings traded a 2021 second-round pick and a 2022 conditional fifth-round pick for a new defensive end, Yannick Ngakoue from the Jaguars. Exciting moves for the Vikings now that former Vikings player Everson Griffin has signed with the Cowboys. Hopefully, Ngakoue will be able to help get that pass rush up to speed. In league news, Sleeper had a UI update in the last week. Check out the app and you'll see that you have the option to do a few tutorials as well or other things within the app to learn it. And you have the opportunity to earn some free cookies. These cookies can be used to buy new mascots in the Sleeper store, and you can find that mascot page by clicking on the shopping bag icon. The mascots are just a fun little thing in the app that will taunt your opponents for you and cheer for your team week to week in your matchups. This past week was also the keeper deadline, and we had a group of team owners on to discuss that. So let's head over to the Armchair experts.
On this week of Armchair Experts, we're going to be discussing everybody's keepers and power ranking the teams in the league. With myself today, I have Noel Tigan and Drew Mahold. How we doing, boys?
Excellent. Excellent. Ready to judge everybody's teams.
Same. Hopefully we don't make too many enemies in this this roundtable discussion, but I don't know. I'm going to speak pretty harshly about some of these teams, so hopefully we don't get too many battle wounds, but let's get into it. How does it sound?
Sounds good to me. Let's do it.
All right. We're going to start at number 10, and we're going to work up to our number 1 spot. We probably already all know who number 1 is, but we'll leave that suspense later. So in the number 10 spot, Noel, who do you have?
For me, I unsurprisingly or surprisingly, I'm not sure how this is going to go, but I have Tony and his team of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, or Elair, I should say. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And do you want to give some rationale for the pick at number 10 there?
Sure, yeah. So what shocked me the most about Tony was that he decided to keep Drew Brees. Drew Brees is 40 years old, and although he's breaking every single passing record, it seems, he's going to score you points, but when it comes to quarterback scoring you points, you need a running quarterback, it seems like, in this day of age. As you can tell, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, those were the top 3 last year, and they're all able to run and make plays with their legs. And Drew Brees can't do that for you. And I guess I didn't look too deeply into Tony's team, but it just amazed me that he wanted to keep Drew Brees, whether or not he, like I said, because of their high-powered offense or what. But
Sure.
The rest of his keepers were decent. Todd Gurley, we all know he's got some issues with his knees, but he's starting on a new team, and sometimes that revitalizes a player's career. And so I guess we'll see if that Todd Gurley is able to do that with the Falcons and Matt Ryan and their offense. And then he's got Julio Jones on the Falcons as well. And Julio Jones is, I think we can all agree, is the number one receiver. He's just a unreal specimen. We all see the catches that he's able to make, and the way he contorts his body on the sideline to be able to stay in bounds while he's catching. It's unbelievable. And then he's got Stephon Diggs, who's a big playmaker that, as we've seen on the Vikings. And his other running back is Mark Ingram, and he's on the Ravens. And we all know how explosive the Ravens offense was last year. So he's got some good keepers. They're a little bit older than you'd want, but Tony's number 10 on my list.
Sounds good. Drew, who do you have at number 10 and why?
I actually have Thomas. So his team is named Don't Suck Please, but unfortunately it might suck. So I like Deshaun Watson. It's a good piece, but as some of you might know, based on the interview with Zach in one of the most recent episodes of the Rathole, I'm a big running back. I emphasize running backs in fantasy football. His only running back he's keeping is Le'Veon Bell, who did not have the best season last year, playing on a Jets offense that can't do anything. And then after that, his receivers, Keenan Allen, T.Y. Hilton, tight end Kelsey. That's a solid trio of pass catchers to have, but I worry about the running back spot for him quite a bit. So I'm going to have Thomas at number 10.
Sounds good. I also have Thomas at number 10 for a lot of the same reasons that you talked about, Drew. I'm big on running backs, and to only see one running back kept, and the one guy that he's keeping is Le'Veon Bell, who is, at this point, based on last season's performance, a borderline RB2 at best. So to have that be your only running back that you're keeping is really going to put a lot of stress on his draft. He's really going to have to prioritize running backs early on. And hopefully some of them slip as far as his draft position. But the wide receivers, they're okay. They're nothing to call home about. I think that they'll be able to put up some consistent points, but I don't see like a lot of potential for just breakout games from either of his guys in T.Y. Hilton or Keenan Allen. I like Deshaun Watson, an obvious keeper for Thomas. And then also, just like you said, Travis Kelce, obvious keeper, great player. I think one of the moves that I would have made this offseason if I had Thomas's roster would be to try to offload either Kelce or Andrews, because he has two of the top three tight ends in the league. May have been able to dump one of those guys off on somebody. I don't know if people would have traded for Andrews, but I definitely would have been interested in Kelce. And he could have maybe locked in a better second running back. So definitely for me, the clear number 10 team. But yeah, hopefully he can make some moves in the draft. And then my number 9 pick is going to be Tony's team. A lot of the same reasoning that Noel gave. Some of the highlights for me, Drew Brees, just like Noel mentioned, very questionable keeper selection for me. I don't think he'd be kept on any other team in the league. I guess looking at the rest of Tony's roster, it kind of makes sense. I'm not sure he had another guy to keep in place of him, but definitely a questionable move. Both of his running backs, and Mark Ingram and Todd Gurley, are both guys that I feel like could lose their starting job at some point this season, either due to injury or just due to a up-and-coming rookie who could be trying to make a name for themselves. And then Julio Jones, obviously an extraordinary talent, will definitely be carrying Tony's team next year. But Stephon Diggs, you got to wonder if in Buffalo he's going to be able to really break out and have a great season without having a guy like Adam Thielen on the other side of the football. So we'll see. We'll see if he's able to produce and put up good numbers as a wide receiver too for Tony. But obviously having him down at number 9, I don't have a ton of faith in that roster. Noel, what do you got for number 9?
Yeah, so I just switched places with the guys. I got Thomas at number 9. As Drew was pointing out, his team name is literally Don't Suck Please, so we all know how last season went for him. You guys did, you pointed out all the things that I was going to talk about. Having Le'Veon Bell as his only keeper running back, that's a big sore spot, because in a league where running backs are far and few between, you really need to keep those when you can. And I was kind of surprised Thomas didn't try to make a move for one of my running backs over the offseason. just because I had a couple that I could have dumped off into the draft or traded as you picked one up. I think you guys are a little too harsh, though. I feel like Deshaun Watson and Travis Kelce are a fantastic base to build around, especially since Kelce signed a gigantic contract just a week or two ago. And we all know Deshaun Watson's a winner. He's going to do what he can to win, whether that be with his legs or his arm. He's going to do whatever he can. Keenan Allen, although he lost Phillip Rivers, we don't know if Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert is going to be their quarterback yet. But Keenan Allen, he's another great receiver with bountiful of talent. And he's going to make plays when need be, as if he gets the chances. So I think he was a fantastic keeper. And then T.Y. Hilton, he's getting old. I think we all know that, but he's still got plenty of talent, plenty of speed in the bag. And he's got Phillip Rivers now, and so maybe his potential will go up as he'll be getting some more deep balls. So.
All right, Drew, who do you have in your number 9 spot? Why?
I have Sam Olsen, Google team names at number 9. I don't love the running back situation. James Conner is a solid piece for sure. Melvin Gordon, though, I don't see him immediately jumping to that like featured back number 1 role at Denver. It seems like more and more now teams are doing that running back by committee deal. And obviously, as Sam knows, Philip Lindsay is still a good piece there. So I don't think he'll be the featured back that maybe many think. And then, at receiver, I think Amari Cooper and Metcalf are both pretty boom or bust players. That could result in some pretty poor weeks because I think, Cooper, for one, is in an offense with a bunch of different weapons. Now you got CeeDee Lamb there, you got Michael Gallup. I think there's almost too many weapons plus Zeke in Dallas. And then Metcalf is very boom or bust to me, where Seattle runs the ball so much that it kind of relies on him scoring a touchdown. So Kyler Murray's got potential, still a lot to prove there. I'm keeping Sam at 9.
Sounds good. Yeah, I have Sam in my number 8 spot, actually. Again, for a lot of the same reasons that you just pointed out, Drew. Kyler Murray, I think, is probably his most exciting player, most long-term play. A lot of people are expecting really big things from him with a couple of new weapons around him this season. So I think that he's obviously going to have a good season, and hopefully he'll be able to carry Sam's team to a decent finish. But I think ultimately his running backs and wide receivers just aren't up to the level that a lot of the other teams are in this league. Like you mentioned, Amari Cooper, I could see his season going one of two ways. Having other weapons around on the field could take a lot of his touches away, but it could also free him up from double teams. I know that that's what Sam mentioned that he's hoping for. So we'll see if that pans out for him. DK Metcalf, kind of a borderline keeper for me. I think that with Lockett also on the field for the Seattle Seahawks, I definitely see that boomer bust potential, but kind of a risky play for a keeper. James Conner and Melvin Gordon, both guys who kind of underperformed last year and will be looking to make strong showings this year. I just don't trust them enough to put Sam higher on this list. I definitely think that they both have like potential to have a good season, but I'm just not seeing it so far. So Sam's my number 8. Noel, who do you have?
Yeah, I got Sam as my number 8 as well. I agree with most of what you guys said. However, I would just disagree with the Metcalf point. I think you guys aren't giving Metcalf enough credit for his talent and his trust with Russell Wilson. I think as the season went on, I'm pretty sure, I don't remember exactly after I traded Sam Metcalf, but as the season went on, I felt like he was getting more and more targets. And whether or not that turned out to be more receptions, it just felt like Russell Wilson was trusting him more. And I think as Lockett gets a little bit older, as Wilson does, he's going to be able to throw the ball to Metcalf more just because of his size, and he's able to go up and get it. However, when it comes to his running back situation, I agree with what you guys said. There's definitely better places to be than where Sam is, but he's not in the place where Thomas is. So there's that. And Kyler Murray, I'm excited to see what he does. He was so much fun to watch last year. Him and Lamar are two of my favorites to watch just because of what they're able to do on the field. And so, Kyler is definitely his best keeper this year.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the Cardinals are going to be one of the teams that are going to be really fun to watch this year, especially with the additions that they made. Drew, who do you have?
I have Tony, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Part of the reason I'm picking him here, and now I know this is supposed to be based on keepers, I just can't get this out of my mind. I do have high hopes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and assuming
Hilaire,
whatever, Hilaire. whatever it's called, CEH.
Whatever. Whomever.
I can't get it out of my mind that he's going to get him, and I
Mhm.
think that he's going to be like Edwards-Helaire is going to be a top 5, top 10 running back in fantasy this year. So that's kind of part of the reason I have him higher. And then, I don't love Drew Brees as a keeper. I'm with you guys there. I don't love Gurley in terms of the health. He's got one good knee. But Mark Ingram's still a big piece and the best rushing attack that the NFL has seen in decades. Julio Jones is very productive, and one of these years he's going to get the touchdown numbers that kind of match up with his production. And it probably could be in 2020. Who knows? Diggs, depending on how accurate Josh Allen is, could be a solid number 2 receiver. So there's good and bad, of course, at number 8 in the league. But I think really what's lifting him up here for me is that he will be getting Edwards-Helaire, that first pick.
Yeah.
I didn't realize the upcoming draft had an impact on keepers. So.
Well, we're power ranking.
It doesn't. I'm thinking it differently. I'm zigging what you guys are zagging, all right?
I like it. Well, we all had the same bottom 3 teams, but in different order. So right. I think we might start to see some things shake up a little bit more here as we move on. Noel, who do you have in your 7th spot?
As unfortunate as it is for our commissioner, I got him as our 7th place. We got Gluten Freaks coming in, kind of round out the bottom 4. And my reasoning for that one, he's got 2 good running backs. They're young. They both had their issues last year, though. Chris Carson, he had some issues with fumbling, and Pete Carroll tends to just throw those running backs back in after they fumbled. So I don't know if it's that Chris Carson wasn't able to get that mindset where shit, I can't fumble, I need to hang on to the ball, or what. But I think hopefully they were working on that in the offseason. Josh Jacobs, he's the focal point for the Raiders, their offense. It's interesting with the signing of Jason Witten and Marcus Mariota, if they're going to play either of those two, because they had Darren Waller last year, who was one of the top scoring fantasy tight ends. And Derek Carr, he, ever since his MVP form season after he broke his ankle, he hasn't been the same, but he's been able to do so much for that offense. It'll be interesting to see what Gruden does there. But like I was saying, he's got 2 great young running backs for keepers, and that's a solid foundation for him. And he's also got Hopkins, who's one of the top 5 receivers in the league. It'll be interesting to see how he transitions to the Cardinals offense. It's going to be more of a passing game there, but we'll see how everything works out. I still think he would have been better with the Texans just because of his connection with Watson. So I don't know if I would have him as high this year yet, just not being able to see any preseason games. But we'll see how that shakes up. And then David Johnson. I've never liked David Johnson. I don't know how Zach has such a love for him. I know he saved him 1 fantasy season, but ever since he hasn't been able to do much. And as I said earlier, Tyler Lockett, he's still unbelievably athletic. Some of the catches he's able to make in the end zone, it blows my mind. But he is getting older, and so I think he didn't have the most options for keepers, but I think he could have worked some other trades last year trying to get rid of those 2, just because in my eyes they're getting older and I wouldn't want to keep them. So that's why I got him at 7.
For sure. Drew, do you also have Zach at number 7, or you got someone else?
I do not. I have Diamond Hose Lucas at number 7. And a part of that, I'm just looking at the keepers here, and the big takeaway for me is the receiver spot. Kenny Galladay is his only receiver. Now, I get that, he's got Kittle at tight end, which does offset a little bit of that. But to me, that's clearly the worst receiver position remaining in the teams right now of the keepers. Now, the Barkley Mixon combo at running back is stellar. Matt Ryan, a pretty solid fantasy quarterback. So there's a lot of potential, 100%, but I think he'll have to hit on a pick or 2 in the draft here at receiver to kind of give himself a chance during the season.
Definitely, yeah. That seems to be a trend with these teams that are keeping just 1 wide receiver, 1 running back. It seems like they're going to be very reliant on the draft, so it'll be interesting to see where they come out. I also have Zach as my number 7 spot. When I look at his roster, there's nothing that I really hate about it, but there's just not a whole lot I love. Noel made a lot of really good points. Something I would want to bring up is he is keeping 3 running backs just like myself. Kind of like, to use Drew's terms earlier, that is a zag when everybody else is zigging. We'll see if it pans out. I'm certainly hoping that it will. But definitely a risky strategy by league standards. I like Josh Jacobs. I think a lot of people, I think he's going to make really big strides this year. Carson, I've never really been the biggest on Carson. I know that his numbers, say different things, but just with the eyeball test, I've never been a huge fan of his. Probably pretty biased in that sense, but we'll see if he's able to prove me wrong this year. I totally agree with Noel about David Johnson. I don't really know what Zach sees in him. I think he's kind of a has-been, hoping for a little bit of to catch lightning in a bottle this year in a new system. So we'll see if he's able to finally move forward from his down seasons in recent history. I like Lockett. I think of the two receivers in Seattle, I'm bigger on Lockett than Metcalf. So I think that's a solid keeper for him. And then Hopkins rounding out his team being, in my opinion, his clear number one keeper, a top 5 wide receiver like Noel mentioned. I think he's actually going to do really well in Arizona this year. I don't know why Noel's not big on that move, but we'll see if he's able to make that same connection with Kyler Murray. So we'll see. But yeah, I have Zach in my number 7 spot.
It's not that I'm not big on it. I just think him and Watson had such a strong bond, and not that him and Murray can't. And that like Cliff Kingsbury, we all know he's one to have bring out the air raid. And so Hopkins might have more potential there, but it'll just be interesting to see. That's for sure.
Sounds good. All right, moving on, Drew. Who do you have next?
I have myself at number 6, and I'm gonna bring it up. It devastates me to say it, but I really kind of wrecked my own team down the stretch last season with some of the decisions I made, getting rid of Derrick Henry, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. There are decisions I wish I could have back. So, but even looking at my team, I like Kamara and Eckler at running back. I think Kamara, if he stays healthy, could be a really solid top 5 running back and kind of back to 2017, 2018 form when he was, a top 2-3 running back in fantasy. At receiver, it gets kind of iffy. Feeling off the injury, he will be there at kind of the clear-cut number 1 now in Minnesota, but that does mean more attention. And his history of performing on the field without Diggs with him is not awesome. So that's a little bit scary. And then Cooper Kupp really fell off the cliff after about 10 weeks, really right after I traded for him last year. So that's nice. Of course, I do have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, which really lifts me from probably 7 or 8 to 6 in my rankings. So I'm not thrilled about my team right now, but that's what the draft is for.
Sounds good. I have Lucas in my next spot. I think Lucas's team on paper looks really solid. A lot of the guys that he has are very highly ranked. I just don't trust them. It's as simple as that. Like Joe Mixon is a guy that is routinely called a top 10 or even top 5 running back in the NFL. I just haven't personally seen it. I don't know if it's going to happen this year. I want to see it before I trust him. So I think that Lucas potentially could have one of the best rosters in the league if Mixon does perform well this year. Having Saquon as his other running back, obviously he's a top 3 guy going into this season. So if Mixon is able to perform, I think Lucas is really going to do well. Only keeping one wide receiver, as we discussed, it's going to put him in a tough spot in the draft, but I think the guy that he's got is phenomenal. I think Kenny Galladay is actually underrated and underappreciated in the league right now. Getting Matthew Stafford back for a full season, I think he's really going to light it up this year. And I don't see a ton of weapons that are going to be competing for touches. Matt Ryan, a guy that is definitely a questionable keeper for me, being one of the lower ranked quarterbacks that got kept, probably the lowest other than Drew Brees. So definitely a question mark there. Looking at Lucas's roster, I guess I can't really find a guy that I like more to keep, but probably personally would have just kept a skill player, even if they don't seem like a keeper. They can at least be a really solid bench option for some of those off weeks. And then Kittle, you have to keep him, a top 2 tight end in the league. Puts up wide receiver numbers at times, could potentially break out for a big game every once in a while. So I think that that's an obvious keeper for me. I really like Lucas's team on paper. I'm just looking for his players to actually come through and put their money where their mouth is. So we'll see. Noel, who do you have?
Yeah, same exact reasons for Lucas. His team looks fantastic on paper, like you said. I'm a higher on Joe Mixon than you, though. I think the reason he hasn't been able to perform is just because of how terrible the Bengals offense has been. It has just been a dumpster fire, just like Cleveland. But hopefully they're able to start turning the culture around with Joe Burrow. He's a champion. He's a winner. And hopefully he's able to bring that attitude to the team and help change that culture there. And then we can actually see Joe Mixon perform well. Saquon, like you said, top 2, potentially number 1 running back in the league if he doesn't get injured last year. Kenny Golladay, as you were saying, I think he's underrated as well. I mean, there's no stating it any other way. I think he's not as good as Kelvin Johnson, but he's like 1 tier lower. He's got fantastic size, and Matthew Stafford trusts him. He throws him the ball whenever he feels as though he gets a chance to catch it. And like you said, he's just an underrated player. He doesn't get talked about too often. Matt Ryan, same thing with Drew Brees. He's an older quarterback, like you said. There's not many other options Lucas had, so we might as well keep one that their offense is going to be throwing the ball, and then George Kittle, top 2, top 3 tight end. So,
yep,
on paper it looks fantastic.
All right, well that rounds out our bottom 5. Noel, we'll stick with you here. Who do you have in your number 5 spot?
Yeah, so I don't know why Drew had himself so low. For 5, I have Brennan Shawn actually. Drew, yeah, you're higher on my list than what you have for yourself. You're a little pessimistic, but that's nothing new. For Shawn, I mean, he's got a fantastic running back in Dalvin Cook, top 5, top 3, depending on who you're talking to. He makes plays when you need him. It's as simple as that, and that's why the Vikings feed him the ball so much. If they need a big run, if they need a screen pass for him to break open, they give him the ball. And so he's going to get his touches throughout the game, especially with them trading Diggs away. They get a fantastic rookie in Justin Jefferson, but with that being said, with the lack of the preseason, we're going to be – I feel as though the Vikings are going to be pounding the ball, and that's going to be giving it to Dalvin Cook. And then you get to Mike Evans and Odell Beckham Jr., who on paper, 2 of the best receivers. Whether or not they perform that way every year, Odell seems to have fallen down recently. But Mike Evans, him and Chris Godwin were 5 and 6 last year. But to me, I think Evans' stats were inflated just because of Winston. He throws a lot of pick sixes. They get scored on a lot, and so they're always throwing from behind. And so I don't think he's going to be as good this year. And so that's why I have Swan a little bit lower, even though he's got 3 fantastic skill positions. His other running back is Kenyon Drake, and he did make a name for himself when he got traded to the Cardinals. He was able to perform better. I don't know if it's because he was on a different team or what, but I don't trust him still. I never have. When people were talking about him on the Dolphins being their starter, I can't trust him yet. And then Russell Wilson, he is aging, but he still makes plays when you need him, and so he's going to get you points.
For sure. Yeah, I totally agree with you on the wide receiver duo down in Tampa Bay this year. It'll be interesting to see what they can do with Tom Brady as opposed to Jameis Winston, who's a loose cannon all the time. Yeah. So I think Tom Brady's the exact opposite of that. So we'll see. Yeah. Drew, who do you have in that number 5 spot?
Number 5 spot, I got Mr. Commissioner himself, Zach Eichten, the gluten freaks. And like you guys, I mean, I'm not going to completely reiterate what you guys said, but I have a little bit more hope on David Johnson. And part of that is because I did win lots of money on David Johnson in 2016. But Chris Carson is still in Seattle, and they run the ball way too much. So, I mean, as long as you can get over the fumbling thing, which who knows, that should be, still a solid, probably top 15 running back there. Jacobs, you really can't not keep him just because he's one of those guys, once he finally gets into an offense that can perform consistently, and if who knows that's going to happen to Derek Carr or not, but I like Jacobs. And then, high upside there with Hopkins and Kyler Murray in Arizona. And Lockett, still a number 1 for Russell Wilson when the Seattle Seahawks do pass. So I got right in the middle at number 5 is Zach's team.
Sounds good. I have you, Drew, in my number 5 spot. Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, the undisputed number 1 quarterback keeper in the league. Lamar Jackson obviously has huge upside potential, but I think Patrick Mahomes is just the safer play. Just until I see Lamar Jackson repeat his success last season, I'm going to just trust Patrick Mahomes a little bit more. I don't love the wide receiver duo that you have, Drew. Kupp and Thielen are both guys who have a lot of individual talent, but Thielen with Diggs leaving, we'll see if Jefferson's able to take that same role that Diggs had. Otherwise, I think that Thielen may be taking on a lot of double teams, and we'll see if he's able to see if he's able to perform well under that kind of wide receiver one pressure now that he doesn't have Diggs. Kupp definitely helps getting Brandon Cooks out of LA, but even with that increased target share, I'm not sure that it's going to matter if Goff can't throw the football better. So we'll see. And then the running backs are definitely the bright side of your team, Drew. Kamara, he's got to be better this season. He's not going to be injured. It's pretty incredible now knowing what his injury was that he was able to put up the type of numbers that he did. I really feel like he has potential to be the number one fantasy player this season. And then Eckler, I can't doubt this guy. I mean, I've doubted him in the past. Melvin Gordon gone now. His second running back, I don't even know his name. It sounds like it's still going to be a somewhat split backfield, but he should definitely be getting a majority of the touches. Just a guy that seems incredible with the ball in his hands and in open space, able to move around, catch the football in the backfield or anywhere on the field. So I can't doubt that guy, but yeah, I have Drew in my number 5 spot. And then in my number 4 spot, I have Brennan Swan. Thought Noel brought up a lot of great points. He has, on paper, the 3rd best running back duo in the league. Dalvin Cook, obviously going to be a workhorse for Brennan, very consistent, and he also has that potential to blow up for a couple of really big weeks. Kenyon Drake has a ton of boom potential in my opinion. I think that there's also an equal likelihood that he could just fizzle out and not meet the high expectations that he has moving to Arizona. So we'll see what he's able to do. Obviously, he was there for a few games last season, but see if he's able to carry over that success this year. Evans, like I mentioned already, I totally agree with Noel or Drew. I can't remember who said it, but I'm just not sure we're going to see the same type of numbers out of the wide receivers down in Tampa Bay this season with a much more conservative quarterback. Hopefully, they're going to be playing from ahead a lot more. So I think the game script of being ahead could actually hurt them, which is pretty rare. So we'll see what he's able to do. And then OBJ just feels like a guy that just has to finally have a good season. Like after the last couple seasons, obviously at one point he was widely considered a top 2 wide receiver in the league, along with Antonio Brown. Just feels like he has to be more productive this season. Obviously the opportunities there, like Jarvis Landry had a few really solid weeks last season. So the receptions are there, but we just have to see if he's able to bring it back to his old form. So I guess we'll wait and see. Drew, who do you have in your number 4 position?
Got the Rock Plopstas, John Stevens. Now, I think 2 of those keepers directly from my squad. Is that right? Although,
yeah. Devontae and Aaron
I guess
Jones.
I had Thielen and Kupp, which also was from your team. Yep. I'm not feeling the Miles Sanders hype. Now, I might be totally wrong on that. And, I quite frankly, with Philly, I don't even know who else there is at running backs. Maybe I'm totally I just don't feel the hype. I don't get it yet, but I could be wrong. Obviously Chubb and Jones that's a terrific running back duo. I'm going to say the same thing I said last year when I traded away Jones, is that I feel like a touchdown regression is coming. That just seems like it's very due to happen. He scored too many touchdowns last year, and that was the benefit of a lot of those. It just feels like something that's going to come back to hurt. But again, Jones, Chubb, Sanders is a pretty darn solid top 3 running backs to have. Devontae Adams, number 1 receiver, that's a great starting point at wide receiver as well. And Allen Robinson is, it's funny because he's so productive in fantasy, especially PPR wise, and he's been playing his whole career without a good quarterback. So it's fun to think about what he would do with not Trubisky or not Blake Bortles throwing him the ball. So unfortunately, it's going to be Nick Foles or Trubisky for Robinson still this year for you, John. But that's those 5 guys are really solid. I'm just not quite on the hype train for Sanders to put you above number 4.
Sounds good. Noel?
So I guess this is our rankings are a lot different than I thought because I got Josh at number 4.
Okay.
And like to me, like this isn't part of it. Josh is one of the laziest fantasy owners that we have, like just regarding his participation in this stuff, whether it be like the weekly rankings or like with Zach's podcast or whatever. But he does get the number 4 spot for me. It helps when you got Lamar Jackson and Zeke for your top 2 spots. We all saw what Lamar does. He's an unbelievable playmaker, and he's going to get you points no matter if it's in the air or running. Same as Patrick Mahomes, like you guys were talking about. For Zeke, he's in a high-powered offense, as Drew pointed out. They got plenty of weapons for them, and they have one of the best offensive lines to run behind. And so Zeke, barring any setbacks, like sitting out, I don't think he's ever sat out from injuries, just for like contract disputes. But barring any setbacks like that, he's on pace for a great year. He's got A.J. Brown and Chris Godwin, who are 2 up-and-coming wide receivers. I think Chris Brown was wide receiver 15 last year, and I think that he was very underrated because I don't remember many people talking about him, whether it just be because of the Tennessee offense or whatnot. But I think A.J. Brown was a fantastic keeper choice for him, and I don't know if people thought he was going to keep him or not. I was kind of hoping he wouldn't just so I could snag him in the draft at some point. So it's unfortunate that he did. But Chris Godwin, the reason I have Josh at 4 and not higher is because, as we talked about with Tom Brady moving to Tampa Bay, I don't think their receivers are going to be as productive as last year. I still think they have a great opportunity with Bruce Arians. He likes to air it out. But they also have Gronk, who's going to take some of the target shares away. And Brady's always going to look for him in crunch time. And so I think that's a huge impact on his fantasy value. And lastly, Leonard Fournette. He is not who he was his rookie or sophomore year. I think we can all agree on that. I think he finished as running back 17 last year or something. And that's where people have him ranked this year at running back 17. And so that's weighing him down, given the Jaguars' offense hasn't been the same. They had one breakout year, it felt like. But I don't trust Fournette anymore. He is – I don't want him on my team. I don't want him anywhere near my team. And I mean, if you're Josh,
I really feel no.
Yeah, if you're Josh, like you have to keep him because he's still a workhorse running back. But if I'm him, I would have tried to get rid of him.
Must be nice to not need a guy like Leonard Fournette. Yeah, I think he makes some really good points there, Noel. Moving into the 3 spot, I have Josh. I think that Josh has probably got the team that suffered the most from having that 5 keeper limit. He had a lot of guys that really could have been a keeper if it was expanded to like 7 or 8 spots. He had to cut guys like Zach Ertz, Juju, and David Montgomery, obviously, before the injury. What was that?
DJ Chark as well. I think
DJ Chark, too. Yeah, he had a lot of really solid guys that could have been keepers. So that obviously really sucks for him. Let's hope he kept the right guys. At least he didn't keep Montgomery, given the news today that he was carted off the field. So he made at least one right move, it seems, so far. I like a lot of things that Josh has going for his team, though. He has, on paper, the 3rd best wide receiver duo in the league. A.J. Brown, like you said, Noel, I think he's a guy that's kind of slid under the radar, just being on the Tennessee Titans, a team that doesn't throw the ball a ton. But he's extremely talented, got great hands, very tall. We'll see if Tannehill is able to maintain the kind of success that he had last season. That's my only real question about A.J. Brown, but I think that he's a guy that is poised for an even bigger breakout this season. Mm-hmm. Not even going to talk about Godwin. I think we've said all we can about the Tampa Bay duo down there. Zeke, obviously, just a guy that's continually been able to get it done ever since he's come in the league. I don't see any reason why that wouldn't continue this season. And then Fournette is the biggest – he's kind of the X factor for this team, in my opinion. I think Josh has potential to make a run at the title, but I really do feel like it's going to come down to that running back 2 position. It's a really steep drop-off from Zeke to Fournette between his 2 running backs. So it'll be interesting to see if Fournette's finally able to get some better numbers and kind of have shades of his former college career in the NFL. So that's my biggest question mark for Josh's team, but I think he's got a really solid foundation going into the draft. Drew, who do you have in your number 3 spot?
Yeah, I got Josh at 3 too. I'm not going to completely copy what you guys just said about his team, but I will say I am more optimistic about Fournette than you guys are. I think part of that, I think he's one of those guys that had sort of the opposite effect Aaron Jones, where the like yardage and the carries didn't quite match up to his low touchdown total. And so I think that's sort of bound to kind of find his level, so to speak. As long as the Jaguars can do something. Plus, they now have a Johnny on the roster, offensive line there. So that's going to be open up some big holes Leonard Fournette to run through. But actually, he was a lot more productive in the passing game last year, Fournette was. So that was kind of my thing with Fournette coming out. I didn't love him because out of LSU because he wasn't a big receiver. Now he seems to have evolved that part of his game. So we'll see if the Jacksonville Jaguars take advantage of that. I think they should. So I'm a little more optimistic about Fournette there. But yeah, same thing with A.J. Brown, very high upside with Tannehill. Apparently being a good quarterback now in Tennessee. Godwin, same deal. Zeke in Dallas, that offense is going to put up some points, and he will probably be the benefit of a lot of 1 to 5 yard touchdown runs. And then Lamar, of course, the ultimate dual threat quarterback.
Yeah, well, hopefully for Tony's sake, Hilaire has a little bit more success as a LSU running back in the NFL.
Yeah.
Noel, who do you have in your number 3 spot?
Yeah, so 3, I got Drew. You guys talked all through Drew's team as we could. I'm higher on his 2 receivers. They're not like standout number 1 wide receivers, but they're going to be the wide receiver 1 on their team. Cup, you can make an argument that Robert Woods is going to be their number 1. He's more of a deep threat, though. And so for me, I feel like Cup is going to get more targets this year, just with, like you guys said, Brandon Cooks being on. So I'm higher on those 2 receivers. I think Drew, he did make some bad trades last year, how they turned out. You kind of guess it was going to be this bad for him. But I think his situation is better than we think, especially when it comes to his running backs. Kamara, he was playing through injuries last year, and maybe even 2 years ago. He's had some knee and ankle issues. And I think like 2 or 3 months ago, he said he's finally healthy again. And so we'll see if he's able to perform that way. And then Eckler, he proved everybody wrong, any of his doubters wrong. He showed what he's able to do last year with Melvin Gordon being gone. And so he's tier 1 running back in my eyes. And then he's got Mahomes, who's like Johnson, number 1 quarterback. So I think for me, at least, you guys were being a little hard on Drew's team. The receivers weigh it down a little bit, obviously. But on paper, I think Drew's got a great team still.
Sounds good. Sorry, Drew, did we hit your number 3 already? I can't remember.
Yeah, we did. I talked about Josh. I can go with number 2.
Yeah, sounds good.
So I got Brennan Swan, the Spring Chickens.
Wow.
My number 2 team in the league. I think you guys both had them, 5-4 maybe? Or 5 and 5?
Yeah, 5-4.
5-4.
I think part of it was because his team name sucks, and so I dropped him down just because I don't like it. Just kidding.
I'm not gonna judge you for weighing that into your ranking because I did the whole first pick thing for Tony. So
I'm just kidding.
With Brennan, okay, so Kenyon Drake was a stud with the Cardinals down the stretch last season.
Right.
I don't know. It sounds like he and that Chase Edmonds are going to maybe have a bit of a committee to start with in Arizona, but that offense is going to put up points. So I think he'll be the benefit of quite a bit of some shorter touchdowns. Dalvin in Minnesota, again, stud. Now I'm high on the Browns this year. I think they'll finally break through and make the playoffs.
We've been saying that for like 8 years.
And a part of that is because Kevin Stefanski's head coach now. I think the offense will finally get things figured out. Odell Beckham will put up superstar numbers again. Mike Evans definitely going to drop off in Tampa Bay. That's for sure, but I still think he can be top 10, top 15 material as the number 1 with Tom Brady. And again, Bruce Arians is still the head coach there, and his mentality is still throw it all over the place. I would imagine that wouldn't change with Brady at quarterback. So then Russell Wilson's immobile, gains points on the ground. I still don't love him fantasy-wise. I think he is susceptible to that low week when they run the ball so much. But I do like Swan's team a lot more than maybe most do.
Sounds good. Noel, you seeming to shrug off some of that. Any thoughts?
Yeah, some of Drew's logic, it just kind of goes over my head because I don't understand what he's thinking. He was not high on Dak Prescott last year. I drafted him in the 10th round, and so nobody really was, and he was the number 2 scoring quarterback. Given Mahomes was hurt for a couple of weeks, and so he probably would have been number 3. But I'm not going to trust Drew's opinion when it comes to fantasy quarterbacks because 1 week doesn't make a break.
Fair enough. I'm not sure I'd trust yours either, though, calling Kirk Cousins an extraordinary quarterback. So we'll see.
Fair.
We'll stick with you then, Noel. Who's your number 2?
Sounds good. I got you, John. The Rock Plops.
What? Not yourself?
No.
I thought I'd.
Yeah, surprisingly not. It was close. It was closer than I thought it was going to be, because you made some fantastic trades these past couple of weeks. You had 2 great additions with Miles Sanders and Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson was a little bit older than I thought. I thought he was younger. He's 27, which is still young for a receiver. And as Drew pointed out, he's never had a good quarterback. And so I think he finished at wide receiver 8 last year. And so it'll be interesting to see if Nick Foles or is the quarterback, or just if their offense changes at all, how he's able to do. And Miles Sanders is 23. He had some breakout performances last year. And so it'll be interesting to see if the Eagles are going to change their offense at all, drafting Jalen Hurts and Jalen Reagor, I think is how you pronounce his last name. But yeah, Drew pointed out all the good things about your team. It looks fantastic on paper. They perform well. You got some superstars, so you're number 2.
Sounds good. Yeah, I also have myself at the number 2 spot. Everywhere I look, I'm just loving everything that I'm seeing. Unfortunately, just not quite enough to take over Noel for the number 1 spot. I think my biggest question mark with my team is obviously not keeping the quarterback. Like I mentioned with Zach earlier, that is not the common strategy, it seems, for this league so far in our first keeper season. So we'll see how that pans out. I'm going to obviously have to take a guy in the draft. So not having that stability at the quarterback position is definitely my biggest question mark. But in terms of the guys that I actually have on my roster, I think, like you said, Noel, on paper, I think I do have a pretty elite roster. It's more so just about if they're gonna live up to the expectations that they have. My top 2, or the 2 wide receivers that I'm keeping in Devontae Adams and Allen Robinson, 2 NFC North guys. Devontae Adams, obviously a guy I'm huge on, being in the Packers. For better or for worse, for better for him, the Packers didn't go out and make any acquisitions other than Funchess, who's not even going to play this season. So looks like he's still going to be getting just the absurd target share that he had last season in Green Bay. And I think he has the talent to back it up and take it on. Obviously, being one of the best wide receivers in the league over the past 5 seasons, I think he'll be able to get it done again this year. And then Allen Robinson, obviously a guy I'm big on, trading for him this late in the offseason. You guys made some great points about the quarterback play. I think that with Foles there, maybe Trubisky will feel the pressure a little bit more and get his shit into gear. Otherwise, Foles is gunning for that spot. And I think that Bears fans are probably not going to be complacent. They're going to start making some noise if Trubisky isn't performing well this year. And then in terms of the running backs, Miles Sanders, again, obviously a guy that I'm pretty big on, trading for him this late in the offseason. I think that as in previous seasons, the running back committee with Doug Peterson has been a little bit more of an obvious choice because they never really had a really clear number 1. Based on the things that I was reading in preparation to offer a trade to Noel, it seems like Sanders is very clearly the number 1 guy in Philadelphia by a pretty big margin. So I don't doubt that he'll still be getting some of his touches taken away by guys lower on the depth chart, but I think that it's definitely going to be less so running back by committee this season and more of a feature back situation. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Aaron Jones, I totally agree with Drew. I think that he's due to see his touchdown numbers go down this year. He was, I believe, 2nd or 1st in the league in touchdowns last season. Very dependent on touchdowns. He still put up decent yardage, both receiving and running the football, but I think that he'll take a step back this year, but I still feel confident that he'll be a RB1 by the end of the season. And then Nick Chubb is obviously a guy that was victimized by Freddie Kitchens last season for whatever reason, would just stop handing him the football for absolutely no reason, not even based on the game script. He would just move away from him. I think Browns fans obviously were very disappointed in that decision a lot of times, and he's no longer there. So we'll see with Stefanski if he's able to get it done this season. I think that in terms of pure rushers in the NFL, he's definitely one of the better ones. So we'll see what he's able to do this season. And then that leaves the number 1 spot, who it appears that we all have Noel. So I will talk first, I guess. For me, it really wasn't a hard choice. I know that, Noel, you mentioned that it was a little closer than you thought. For me, it was pretty far and away. It was pretty far and away your team. You have the best running back duo amongst league owners, in my opinion. I don't think it's really disputable. You have Derrick Henry obviously being the running back 6 in the league, and then a little guy by the name of Christian McCaffrey. So that's a deadly duo in the backfield. An equally deadly duo at wide receiver, the best duo in the league as well. So you're definitely not leaving a lot of holes in your team this season. Tyreek Hill, an incredible talent, and then Michael Thomas. Not sure he's going to have quite the season he had last year, but I still think he's going to be a top wide receiver, probably top 5 without a question. So, and then Dak Prescott, the numbers don't lie. He has just an absurd amount of weapons around him. He's going to benefit from that, and he's also now playing for a big contract. So it'll be interesting to see if he can even step his game up even further now that he's got even more self-motivation. We'll go to Drew.
Yeah, I mean, I have Noel's team. I don't like it, but Noel's team is my top team. The best, like, he's got the best running back duo. He's got the best receiver duo. Dak is the top 5 fantasy quarterback. Noel is the buzzsaw this year, and I mean, like I said, I think in our group text, he is the Golden State Warriors of this fantasy league. So we're kind of all aiming for him and aiming to take him down. So, and it would be a shame if we had some sort of really season-ending injury to one or two of those guys. I'm not saying I would never wish injuries upon any player. That is not an ethical thing to do. It's just something that would be a shame to see happen.
Sure.
Unbelievable.
Noel, do you care to talk about your own team? You want to gas yourself up a little bit?
Sure, yeah. I'm never one to shy away from talking about fantasy football. I think I was able to tell Drew that last year with numerous trade offers that I sent him. And yeah, I think I got pretty lucky last year, that's for sure, with how the trades turned out. I'm hoping we don't have any sort of regression. Christian McCaffrey being the focal point of the offense, it's tough because he gets beaten up. And as Drew pointed out, it would be tough to see an injury. But when it comes to somebody like him, he has so many opportunities. You can't really call them opportunities, but the chances of getting hurt are higher for him just because it happens so often of him getting hurt or getting hit, sorry. And it's the same thing with Henry. Like, he's gigantic, but it tends to be when people that big are getting tackled, sometimes it's easier for them to get injured. And then Tyreek Hill and Michael Thomas, I love my receiver duo. Tyreek is the big play guy. I don't really have to worry about PPR because Michael Thomas gets 14 catches a game the way it is. Hopefully it doesn't change. But, I mean, with fantasy, you never know how things are going to turn out. And so although my team on paper is the best, I don't know. We'll see. Johnny came in a close second. Drew, you got a good squad, but hopefully things go the way I wanted to this year. So my team's able to stay top running back crew and top receiver crew.
Yeah, ironic, Noel, that you would have the 3 experts here as your top 3 teams going into this. I guess maybe we are experts. I don't know. According to Noel,
I think you guys are just a little pessimistic on your team.
I would disagree.
Yes.
I would disagree on Drew's quarterback analysis, but that's about it.
Right.
Wait, hold on. Before we leave, I want to know exactly what Noel was disagreeing with. I don't remember what I said that.
It was before the draft at some point last year. I don't remember what we were talking about, but somehow like Dak got brought up, and you were just like, I hate like Dak as a fantasy quarterback, and I was like, whatever.
This was like, wow, you remember this from like before the draft? Okay.
I remember this before the draft because he was the second best performing, and nobody took him, and I got him in the 10th round, and so I was kind of like, yeah.
I thought it was something I said like on this.
No. It was last year before the draft. I got
right. No, fair.
It became personal, Drew. It became personal.
Fair. All right.
Sounds good. Any other concluding remarks, gentlemen, or otherwise we'll wrap it up.
No, just had to get the season started, baby. Let's go.
Somebody beat Noel. Hey, by the way, you're welcome to the rest of the league for not giving Noel Patrick Mahomes.
Yes.
Come on.
Appreciated.
I offered you Amari Cooper, Dak Prescott, and my first round pick.
I know. And I turned it down because I want parity in the league.
Well, and according to Noel, you didn't really even need to make the move. You're the number 3 team in the league, so.
You could have been better. You could have got a better receiver and downgraded at quarterback a little bit, but you could have had a tier 1 receiver, so.
Yeah.
It's on you for having yourself so low.
Hindsight is one.
Hindsight is one. All right. Well, thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. And we'll throw it back to Commissioner Zach Eichten.
Welcome back from that lengthy segment. But with them taking so long, it gave me plenty of time to crunch some numbers for this week's Fun Fact of the Week. This week's Fun Fact of the Week is about the draft and drafting positions. Now, we've had a few expansions in the league, so year to year, not every position is exactly the same, so this stat isn't quite attributable all the way through the drafting spots. However, there's one position that always remains the same in power in the league, and it is the number one drafting position. In that number one draft spot, you are expected to be able to choose the best player in the league, the one that's going to get you the most points, the most valuable player to make your team the best, which is what fantasy football is all about. However, in that first draft spot, your overall, on average, regular season win percentage in this league over 5 years is only 38.46%. That's right. Approximately, you'll win 1/3 of your regular season games drafting from the first position. In fact, only one team has ever drafted from the first spot and had a win percentage over 50%, and it was when Thomas made his championship run. This is by far the lowest win percentage of any position in the league that isn't Tony's single data point from when he drafted in the 9th position last year. Unfortunately for Tony, it sounds like he could be in trouble if that first position trend holds up for this year as well. This week, we also have a news segment as well. So let's head on over to Neat Things I Bought on Vacation.
Check out these genuine Patagonia crappie fish slippers that I got on vacation up in Grand Marais, Minnesota this past week. Check out the detail on these scales each of these fish bring to the table. The mouths are open, waiting for those hooks that everybody just wants them to bite down onto. If you look real close, you can see that those details extend all the way up into the feet. The scales are lifelike, the eyes are lifelike, and the best part of all, they're real comfy. Anyways, thanks for tuning in to Neat Things I Bought on Vacation. Back to you, Zach.
Thanks for the update, Vacation Zach. I appreciate you bringing that neat thing back. This week, I had the opportunity as well to go on a real Thomas Strawn sighting tour in Minneapolis. Now, join me for Finding Thomas.
Today, Zach is on his way into the South Uptown neighborhood of Minneapolis, where a recent sighting of a Thomas Strawn was reported by a local dog walker. Using advanced luring and trapping techniques, Zach will attempt to trap a Thomas. So join us now for an episode of Finding Thomas. I arrive in South Minneapolis with the intention of peacefully trapping a Thomas Strawn in his natural habitat. It's not easy, but if you know what you're doing, it's not too hard either. You start off by just scanning the surrounding area, trying to find any sign of him, the elusive Thomas Strawn. Next, it's very important to know what he likes, so I bring along a set of dice and attempt to lure him using the sound of some nerdy little rocks. After examining the area and setting some lures out, some noise lures, it is important to set up your trap. Everyone knows that once a Thomas gets a single rope around his wrist, he'll become docile. So I bring along a 3-foot rope and a lure of Bertolli tomato sauce. Everybody knows Thomas Strawn is just Italian for crab man, so it's important that you bring along the correct ingredients to catch him. He'll be so distracted by the sauce, he won't notice the string until it's too late.
Let's go. Thomas, thank you for joining me today on the Rathole. I'm glad I was finally able to catch you, get you with me today.
That was a sneaky trap you set up, but well executed.
Well executed trap. It's just a joy to have you on. You are actually the second fellow champion we've had on the program. So why don't you walk me through that? What's it like to be a champion?
So long ago, I can't remember.
2016, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a grip.
Some other monumental stuff happened that year. A little more memorable.
Oh, yes. Oh, God. Anyways. Triggered. All right.
Gotcha.
You got me. You threw me off my rhythm already. You know what? That's all right. Let's get into fantasy football a little bit. Well, first, tell us about yourself.
Well, I am a 24-year-old white male.
Yes.
Who owns a cat.
Very cute cat.
Yeah.
Any other life updates that you got going for us?
Not much other than surviving.
Just like everybody. Kind of right now, just sort of living to the best of your abilities.
Correct.
Yeah, I feel that. All right.
What, before we begin, would like to pay tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Terrible loss.
Yes. Very. I figured Yoda would be very, very sad about the loss of Chadwick. Oh, no, you're not? That's not great.
Nope.
See you, Yoda.
Yep. Joy to have you on. Yes. That's a good shot.
That was a good shot. Yes. Obviously, news cycle, and we all were gripped by the loss of Chadwick Boseman.
Yes.
And it's really quite a bummer. So many of us in the league are such huge Marvel heads, and even if you weren't, you probably knew him from 42, where he played Jackie Robinson, and
great film.
It really is a massive loss for the world. So
yes, sir.
Thanks for the reminder to pay tribute to some of our heroes. All right, so let's hop into fantasy football then.
Yes.
Who has been your favorite fantasy player to ever have on your squad?
Oof. You know what? I gotta go with Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce, you say. All right. So last year you drafted Travis Kelce in the second round.
Yes.
And obviously you are keeping him moving into the 2020 season. What is it about Kelce specifically that makes him your favorite player?
Well, I got absolutely demolished the year prior from not having a good tight end. And so I went with two good tight ends, actually.
Yes.
And they did serve me quite well. Had it not been for Brandon Cooks and Keenan Allen having a less than stellar outing the entire season, as well as Le'Veon Bell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk about. So you mentioned a few different things in there. Just a fun fact for you: last year you by far had the highest number of tight end points in the league. In fact, you're the only team in the league that had tight end points over 200 points over the course of the season, coming from Mark Andrews and Travis Kelce. Give me a little bit of rationale on your keepers then. You've kept Le'Veon Bell, Travis Kelce, Deshaun Watson, Keenan Allen, and T.Y. Hilton. With so much of your team having scored points from that tight end position, did you consider keeping Andrews?
You know what? I did. But I figured T.Y. is probably going to have a good year this year. Okay. And Andrews, while he did score me a lot of points, he was less consistent than Kelce. Yeah. As you know, Kelce also number one tight end in the league.
Absolutely.
And T.Y. is very consistent when he has been in. Yes. So I wanted that consistency more than anything, seeing as how last year I had very inconsistent players in the wide receiver slots, as well as the running back slots.
Yeah, let's talk about your running backs. You're the only team in the league that's only keeping a single running back this year. Mm-hmm. And it's Le'Veon Bell, who you drafted in the first round last year. In fact, you didn't actually draft another running back until round 7 when you drafted James White. Walk me through, do you think that draft strategy went well for you? And do you have any regrets about not keeping a second running back like the rest of the teams in the league?
You know, had I had another good running back, as you pointed out, I drafted him in the 7th round, I probably would have kept another running back instead of a wide receiver. But James White compared to T.Y. Hilton, which is what it really was between them two, T.Y.'s got a better upside for me. Back to the beginning of the question, I don't think the draft strategy worked out too well for me because Le'Veon Bell was a huge disappointment that season.
Past couple seasons, really.
Yeah, that's true. Just ask John.
Yeah.
Did not think that would happen again this year, but shame on me.
Well, he played for the Jets, so
it's
hard to expect much out of the Jets' offensive line. So that's obviously tough. Going into this draft, I want you to rank yourself keepers wise. How do you think you stack up against the other teams now that we know who other folks are keeping? As well as give me an insight into your drafting strategy going into this season.
Well, I think what I'm going to try to do is snag a pretty good running back. I really just need a better running back. I think Keenan Allen's going to have a decent year. I think he's got some potential there. I think T.Y. is going to be consistent, like I've said. Kelsey, I have no doubts about him performing really well. It's just trying to find another good running back to fill that slot. Because, I mean, Deshaun Watson, fantastic quarterback. Definitely a keeper.
Absolutely.
Now, in terms of my keepers, I would still probably rank myself a modest 5th among the league.
Okay.
Yes.
Who are you better than?
Sam.
Sure. Naturally.
Lucas.
Yep.
Tony.
Sure.
And then
Need 2 more.
Well, those 3 for sure.
Okay. So maybe 7th.
Maybe 7th, but I'll get back to you on the other 2.
All right.
Bump myself up to 5th.
Keep thinking about it. So let's talk about last year. All right.
Yeah.
So last year you were a very streaky team. All right. You started off your season. You went 4-0. You lost the mojo a little bit and went 0-4 in those 5 to 8 weeks. Going into this season, what's your plan to make those streaks, those good ones, last longer, and those short ones get broken up?
Like I said, I think what it came down to was some inconsistencies in my players, which is why I'm trying to go for a more consistent lineup this time.
Okay.
And while I think that's going to undoubtedly give me some L's, I think I'll have more W's overall.
All right. So, yeah, obviously you need a running back. Being the only team to only keep one running back, are you looking for youth or are you looking for a proven guy coming into this draft?
Probably a proven guy right off the bat, and then I will be looking secondary for a youthful running back to try and see how he's doing, maybe keep him going into the future.
All right. Yeah, because I think you're in this position. You're drafting from the 6th spot, I believe, or maybe even the 7th spot coming into the season. So you're pretty. I think that based on how your season ended is not quite indicative of how well your season actually was. I think you ended up in 4th place. I
did get lucky there in the playoffs.
And you got lucky in the playoffs a little bit. So it's a little bit of luck. That's what fantasy football is. But I think that for your team, getting a consistent running back is absolutely key. What else are you looking for in terms of, are you looking for this season's going to be the season you go for the gold, or is this a rebuilding year for
this is
the don't suck, please?
Correct. And as my team so clearly states, it's going to be a rebuilding year for me.
Okay.
And the goal here is to don't suck, please.
I like that. I like that. The asking. You're really asking for some help there, and that's good. I mean, last year you weren't terrible by any means. I mean,
you had that remarkably average.
You were remarkably average. You had that streak of 4 losses, but then you only lost one other game in the entire season, and at 8-5, which is a pretty good record overall. You finished your total season record at 5-6, or 9-6 rather. It really wasn't that bad of a season for you. So it's a little shocking to see, at least for me, looking at your keepers, like only one solid running back with such a good position coming into this draft. Just a little bit shocking there for me, but that's okay. So,
if we can continue off that point, I think you have the stats, but I think I lost a lot of my games by a very narrow margin this year.
Let's take a look at that. So your week 4 win actually was one of the lowest in the league. You only won by 0.9 points, which is pretty crazy. But you're right. A lot of your losses were very, very small. So you lost by a 6.1, a 14.72 in there. A couple bigger ones. You had a 42-point loss in week 6 last year against me when you had a bad week. I didn't have a great week. You had a bad week.
Yep, that seems correct.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into this fun fact then. Now that we brought up me into this conversation, a fun fact for me, maybe for you, you have exactly 2 wins against 2 teams in regular season matchups across the board over the 5 years that we've been playing. The first one is Tony. You faced off against him twice last year and won both of those matchups.
Thanks, Tony.
Yep, great job, Tony. Thank you for that one. And the second one is me, where you're 2-7 in regular season. By far your worst record against any regular season opponent. I would say also playoff opponent, but we've actually never gotten a postseason. So I don't know who would win in that, but
I'm sure it would be you because my players seem to hate you when they play you.
What's the kryptonite there? What's the problem, and what are you going to do to try to turn that around, snag a few more wins this year?
Well, like I said, I think a huge thing here is consistency amongst my players, and that goes both ways. I think on some of these dates, these matchups, I had players who scored very well and other players who scored absolutely abysmal. And I think a couple of those weeks were due to some good pickups from the free agency. I think I picked someone up who dropped 33 points that day, which is how I won by that point.
Yeah, let's check your acquisitions from last year. You had 25 acquisitions, which roughly 2 a week in the regular season. That's pretty normal. I mean, a lot of that I'm sure is kickers and folks on bye and all that.
Greg DeLay did me good. Yes. He did me justice.
Yeah. So, it's always tough coming into these matchups because you can prepare all you want, but if your guys just have a bad day, you have a bad day. This season is going to be particularly difficult for predicting who's going to be in and who's going to be out.
Mm-hmm.
What steps are you going to take in this draft and through your acquisitions and trades and whatnot are you going to take to mitigate some of that coronavirus concern that folks are going to be having week to week?
Well, like I said, it's going to be a rebuilding year for me. So really, I'm just looking at players who might have some better longevity than some of the players on my team. Because I think I've got a few people who are starting to age.
Keenan Allen's getting older. T.Y. Hilton's definitely getting older. Le'Veon Bell's been around for a while, but he's still youthful.
He's still got some spunk.
Travis Kelce, hopefully he stays in the league a long time. He's a really fun guy to watch, but these tight ends get beat up. So it's no guarantee. Like Gronk, that anybody will stay in the league forever. So I think consistency is great, and that's wonderful. I want to bring up last season, just your scores again.
Mm-hmm.
You finished 4th overall in the regular season, which is great. But one interesting fact is you did have the lowest average points against per game. So essentially, everybody played their worst against you on average compared to anybody else in the league. How are you planning on ensuring that you stay relevant without that potentially lucky draw during the schedule randomization this year?
Well, I actually have a horseshoe right in my back room over there. That's going to hopefully keep my luck going strong. But like I said, I'm going to go for that consistency here.
Okay.
I'm really looking at some options to increase consistency amongst my team. And that might involve some trades. Who knows?
Last year you didn't trade at all. Are you open to trades this year?
I was trying to trade quite a few times last year. but they were
With who?
reasonable offers.
With who? Put him on blast.
John. Noel always asks for trades, but never trades.
Yeah, no sus. Don't trade with him. You'll end up with David Johnson instead of Michael Thomas.
Correct. And you know what, Sam? If you ever need to make another shitty trade again, I'm your guy.
Sam is a goofball trader, but hopefully it gets better. I'll tell you this, I'm open for trades. Anytime, hit me up. I especially love first round picks, so wait on that one. What has the adjustment been like for you going into this keeper system? What's your thought process on the keeper system so far?
Well, I think my draft strategy had to be a little more serious as compared to my 3 QBs year when I drafted 3 QBs first, second, and third pick.
Yeah, that was bad.
Not my best year.
That was a bad year.
Not my best year.
Let's check that stat book. Let's see.
Let's bring it up, Zach.
Yeah, your team ended up starting as 3 QBs. You ended as 3 get good. Regular season finish 4 out of 8. And then total season finish of 5 out of 8. Actually, not as bad as you would have thought with your terrible drafting strategy where you drafted, Kareem Hunt in the first round. Then Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Cam Newton.
What a guy!
Scam Newton you had on that team too. Did you ever get any trades out of those guys?
I did not.
Nope. Yeah, it's almost like there's an abundance of quarterbacks in this league.
Yeah. I know that now. Yeah, so that was tough. That was big tough for me.
Yeah, that's a rough go. But I mean, oh man, Kareem Hunt in the first round. I forgot he did that. He was good then, though.
Yeah, I think he actually performed pretty well.
He was good. Man, you're old.
I used to have very bad luck with QBs though, which is why I took a really good one this year. Last year with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
So I think I had Tony Romo one year. Not Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, you've had some rough.
That shitty guy from Denver.
You had Andrew Luck,
who was good.
Andrew Luck in 2016. Who else did you have?
Peyton Manning. That's who it was.
Peyton Manning. Yes.
An abysmal year for me.
I remember that. In a different league, I traded him away the week before he got -6 points for someone. What a wonderful time that was.
Yeah, wonderful for you.
Wonderful for me. Terrible for you, but it was good. It was good for me. You've had some rough seasons over the years. Your 2015 season was second worst record of all time, where you went 4-9. The only person who's ever performed worse is Tony with a 3-10 record.
Thanks, Tony.
And John also 3-10.
And John.
Yes, so they tied. They tied for that worst ever record. And so you had that terrible year, and next year you turned it around, swept the table, and you went 9-4 instead of 4-9. So
you know what? I think it was the team name.
The Cincinnati Carambes. You think that was the one?
I think that was it.
Are you planning on switching your team name this season?
If I get good.
If you get good. Okay.
Or it might change into a variation of Don't Suck, Please.
Yeah. Am sucking. No.
Am sucking. No.
All right. Oh, gosh. I'm cheering for you. I really am.
I am too. Thank you.
Because I think my team's better than yours already. And if you beat other teams and make them lose, and I can continue to beat you, that means I win overall because of the transitive property of congruence.
Yeah, I think that's how
it works, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like when I beat Brennan, I was number 1 in the league because it was. Also, I would like to point out that Brennan only did very well because he had a defense drop double-digit points. Consistently.
You want to look at Brennan's defense and see how that worked in conjunction to everybody else's? This is getting ahead of myself a little bit because Brennan is obviously coming up in the in the show at some point. But let's look at Brennan's DST scoring. Brennan outscored the next highest person by 110 points for defense last year.
Makes sense.
And he scored 13.5% of his points from his defensive spot, which is
unheard of.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
Absolutely outrageous. And he did very well. We didn't.
I think that's the game that I got 0.9 points up against him, and I won because Brandon Cooks actually caught a ball.
Which is insane.
Unheard of.
That was unheard of last season.
Without getting a concussion.
All right. Here we go. We do this every week. Favorite part of the program. It is the would you rather question. All right. Would you rather get second place in the championship game for the next 3 years, or just guarantee yourself that you make playoffs every year for the next 3 years?
Wait, get second place every year?
Every year you get second place.
Oh, that's easy. I'll just take playoffs.
Okay.
Because either way, Sam's going to be lynched.
Okay. So you're taking the I just want to get there, and if we get there, that's good. But you don't want to make that championship game? You don't want to guarantee that?
Well, I'll tell you, because I'll be guaranteed to get second.
Yeah.
I make playoffs every year, beat Sam.
Really, obviously.
Easy. And then I got shot at the championship. Otherwise, make the playoffs.
All right, all right. One last would you rather question. This is unprecedented, doing an additional would you rather question.
I get two.
You get two. Would you rather switch spots with Tony in the draft? Team and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you get his lineup of keepers. Or would you rather just have that first pick?
I would just rather have the first pick.
You don't want his team?
Nope.
Over your team?
Nope.
Okay. Interesting.
I would keep my team and take that first pick. I get that first pick. Sayonara.
Game over?
Game over.
You think so? All right.
Tony, give me that first pick.
All right. Yeah, I'm sure the guy who's already changed his team name to something involving that player he's going to pick is definitely going to give up that first pick. But Thomas, thank you for joining me today on the Rathole. It's been wonderful to get to see you again, interview you, and I wish you just good enough luck so you don't beat me this season.
Awesome. And I would just like to say to my team, just one last word.
Yeah.
Don't suck, please.
So glad I was able to find Thomas, and he was also willing to give us a really great interview. Remember that this Tuesday, September 8th at 7 p.m., the day after Labor Day, is the Pong Stars Draft. 7 p.m. Mark it on your calendars right now. Get those last mocks in, do your research, take note of who those keepers are, and let's all go take down Noel this year. Follow us on Twitter at FFLPong for your league updates during the season. A thread on the keepers is up now. That's all we have for this week on the Rathole. Thanks for tuning in. I'm your host, Zach Eichton. And remember to vote.
We didn't start right away, but yeah, that was